What up, fam? Welcome back to Entrepreneur Hour Podcast and Entrepreneur Hour TV. Got a repeat guest today. New book coming out, and fundamentally speaking, and I actually have this conversation a lot, Mike. We're going to get into it, obviously, in our discussion here today. But people are, I use the word stuck, right? And in effect, they just don't know what they should be working on, and thus they work on everything, or they try. And now we're talking about things. As of 2019, May of 2019, the World Health Organization recognized burnout as a legitimate medical condition. It's not a millennial snowflake thing. It is a legitimate thing. And my conclusion or thesis is that largely that's in part due to people and entrepreneurs specifically just trying to juggle all of the balls because we don't know a different mechanism. That's what we're going to talk about today, is the mechanism you've been crafting. I'm not putting words in your mouth. It's my synopsis of it, but we're going to let you talk about that more. But let me first welcome you to the show, Mike Michaelowicz. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, Chris. Thanks for having me back. It's a real joy to be here.
Man, so you showed up in my book club community. You're on the podcast
Everywhere.
once.
You can't get rid of me, bro.
We're just bros at this point. I mean,
we are bros.
Right. So, dude, I know you were just on recently, and I don't think much has been up other than just working on the book, but is there anything else highlight your life you want to first kind of call to attention or let people know of?
I'm a full-time author, so that's what I do. I mean, I do have colleagues here. We do have I do have other businesses behind this, so I'm also an entrepreneur. So I've 3 companies that have a serious equity stake in. One, I'm a board member. We're doing okay. So, with this COVID crisis, all the businesses need to shift, and one's taking a hit, one has grown, and 2 are sustaining, and the one that's taking a hit, we're trying to turn things back up. So, it's just a very dynamic time. It's responding quickly. A friend of mine, Don Miller, said we were playing chess before, and now it's turned to tennis. It's a lot more back and forth and quick adjustments. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. We've been talking about that a lot on my show. Is there any advice you would give to people that are in a little state of panic and do feel like they're playing tennis, as far as what you've been doing to navigate it both emotionally and strategically?
Oh, totally. So I'll tell you the emotional hack, and then I'll give you a strategic hack. The emotional hack is this method called the 10-10-10 method. It's not my method.
I saw you talking about that. Yeah.
Oh, you've heard? Okay. So this was developed by a woman named Susie Welsh. She was married to Jack Welsh, who was from GE, passed away. Mm-hmm. The 10-10-10 method is a way to look at whatever we're considering, to reflect on it in 3 positions. One is a 10-minute position. So say I'm thinking I need to fire someone immediately. Well, how do I feel about that in the next 10 minutes? Well, I feel terrible about that. I brought this person on board. I can't do it. And most people only reflect in the immediate. But the 10-10-10 continues on like this. How will we feel about this in 10 months? So we look forward and reflect back. We say, well, in 10 months, that person, if I terminate them now, they will at least have some security, because the government has all the structure in place to save furloughed employees. So maybe they actually are in a better position themselves, and the business is healthier. In 10 years, looking back, that's the last 10. Now I feel that I've made a really important strategic decision for the health of the business. Maybe that employee I could have hired back, but maybe we've expanded, because if I don't make that decision, there's no business at all. So the 10-10-10 method has been a real valuable tool to see it from the not immediate term alone, but the midterm and long term. It gives me much better contemplation of my decisions.
That's such a smart thing to do. I would say that people often focus on the first 10. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah. So 99% of the consideration is the first 10. It's like toilet paper. People are like, I need toilet paper, and there's this panic run. There's a guy down the street who has a garage full of toilet paper.
That's so
a 50-year supply. Like, is he gonna will this to the next generation? It's absurd, but it's a very short-term focus. And we see it in business too. So many business owners are running to get loans or free money from the government. There's rarely free money. Be very careful.
Yes.
But they aren't considering the immediate need for that money. If you need money now, that means there's something wrong now. Why don't we look at that? So we just look at the immediate relief without the long consideration for the long-term agony.
Yeah, for sure. That kind of actually leads us into discussing your next book. If we're being totally candid here, having a mechanism really protects you from yourself, right?
Yeah.
So I called it Stuck. And I tell people often, I say this on my podcast, I say, you have to divorce your taskmaster, right? Because here's the problem. We've been conditioned for so long, from schooling all the way through to jobs, right? Like, you do all the things, execute them on time, you get a good grade, and you get a promotion at work, right? And then all of a sudden you go to entrepreneurship, and it's, you have to throw that playbook out completely. And I think a lot of us, that's where we kind of lose some semblance of, I don't know another way because this way has been so ingrained in my mind. So A, would you agree with that metaphor? But then also talk about how you establish. So I tell people that, Mike, and then the problem is that they then don't know what, right? They understand the theory of what I'm saying, divorce your taskmaster. But then it comes down to what you're talking about and bridging that gap of vital needs. So if you would kind of walk us through that transition that people have to make and transitioning from taskmaster to business owner focusing on impact to establishing what those vital needs actually are.
Yeah. So I totally agree with your metaphor. It's perfect. And I had actually an affirmation of what you're saying. Was I sent an email out to my readers about 5 years ago to write this book. So it takes me about 5 years to write a book. It's a labor of love, a lot of research. Writing is I'm not an efficient writer. I just keep at it and keep at it. And I emailed my list and I said, what is the biggest challenge you're facing now? Because I assumed if I knew what their challenges were, I could then focus on the book that solves that challenge. I assumed it would be sales, marketing. And the feedback came from people, and then some of the same people answered the same question the same day with a different answer. So it became very clear that entrepreneurs don't know what their challenge is. So the thesis for this book is that the biggest challenge business owners have is knowing what their biggest challenge is. Right. To your point, they're taskmasters. It's just, I think this is it. I need to do this, and then I need to do that, and then I need to do this one other thing. We're constantly jumping. We need to find the vital need. And I set up in the book this concept, I call it the survival trap. A simple way that illustrates this struggle of doing all different tasks. And this is how it works. And you can do it in your mind, or if you have a piece of paper, you can do it on a piece of paper. Sure. But basically you draw the letter A in the center of a piece of paper. And what that represents is where our business is in this moment. It's point A. It could be crisis, it could be challenge, maybe an opportunity. But for many businesses right now, as we're recording this, it's crisis or challenge. Then what we do is we draw a line away from A in any direction we choose. So an arrow out from A. And what that arrow represents is an action that we can take that gets us out of crisis. And then what I want you to do is actually draw another arrow away from A, but in a different direction. And repeat this maybe 4 or 5 times. And what this represents is all the different actions you could take that'll get you out of crisis. As the final step, step 3, draw the letter B in the bottom left corner and put a circle around that. And what B represents is the vital need, the specific thing your business needs from you right now. And chances are, those arrows you drew, few of them, perhaps even none of them, are pointing to B. Which means we are making actions, we're taking actions, making decisions in the moment to escape panic. We're putting out fires without consideration or knowledge of where we need to go. And some of those arrows, Chris, point in the wrong direction. They actually take us further away from our business. And this is the illustration of why businesses stay stuck for so long.
Yeah. I think too, so I resonate with that on such a deep level, man. I've talked to you last time, about, my first business and, how chaotic that was. Yeah. And I think one of the big things is people might feel like doing that kind of an exercise is so extra. It's like, oh my God, I'm not going to write it down. Like, I'll just keep it here. The problem is you can't trust here, right? Yeah, I don't know if people have read the book, Getting Things Done by David Allen, but he breaks down like what the brain is good at and what it's not good at. What you're describing, those are things that the brain is not good at. And it takes up bandwidth that takes away from you doing the things that the brain is good at, like problem solving, creativity, innovation, things of that nature. So right. Is that the primary reason why? I mean, that's neuroscience, so I assume that, it's kind of proven at this point, but is that the primary reason why we end up with all these arrows all over the place? Or are there other factors going on outside of that, maybe in relation to external factors?
Yeah, well, there's this thing, it's a priming effect, which is a behavioral tendency to put greater significance on what's happening in the moment than long-term consideration. Sure. It goes back to that 10-10-10 rule.
That's why I said it ties in perfectly, yeah.
Yeah, so we are like, I got to get out of this, so I'm not going to fire that person because I've been loyal to them and I'm going to feel good about it. And you do feel good about it for the next 10 minutes. And then the crisis presents itself because there's still no money in the coffers. So the B isn't necessarily the long-term vision. It's not the 10 months and the 10 years. What the B is simply what the business needs from you in this moment. But we can't even consider that. We don't even know how to get there because of another tendency. And another tendency is this. We trust our gut. And the gut is very dangerous in business. Yet it's very helpful in personal survival, but they're not linked. So I studied Maslow's hierarchy of needs and translated into a business hierarchy of needs. Maslow was studying human needs and said basically all humans need physiological needs satisfied first. We need to breathe air, drink water, eat food. Then safety needs, goes all the way up to self-actualization. But we are biologically wired that if any base level needs not satisfied, I'll revert to it. So if we're talking and say I'm eating a hamburger and it gets wedged in my throat, all of a sudden I ain't talking anymore. I am choking and trying to get this out. It's a biological response to breathe again. But in our business, we aren't neurologically wired into our business. Our senses aren't indicating where to go, yet we still say we trust our gut. So we often say, my gut says I need more sales. We got cut prices by 50%. We need to start marketing on Facebook. And we start doing these things that aren't necessarily the right thing to do because they're not backed by empirical data. So what we need to do with our business is evaluate our gut saying, but then get into the data and say, does it support this? And is what my business needs? That's the key. And that's because of our gut, because of the primacy effect, we are always doing these arrows out from A, but not really being deliberate in moving our business forward with B.
Because I think, I'm glad you say that, because I think there's also an element too, and this is where entrepreneurs get burned. Like maybe you would equate your situation and what happened. For those that don't know, I'll link our previous discussion above. You can check that out, or below, depending if you're watching or listening. But Mike had a situation where had some success and kind of backfired. And I would say that it was that going with your gut, right? Rolling the dice entrepreneur. And I think sometimes you kind of shackle yourselves when you get away from that. I think sometimes people have, when they have a failure, perceived quote unquote failure, they have a knee-jerk reaction and then they're afraid to roll the dice, and then it is all data and they're afraid to risk it. So yeah, I think that is that duality of managing those two things that you kind of have to learn, data with gut feeling, right?
Yeah, so there's a concept of analysis paralysis, right? And that's where we get so into the data and say, what does it say? So we got to kind of pull a trigger. But then we have these other ones that are just shooting from the hips, and that's what I did. So I sold a couple companies, and I had a Fortune 500 exit. And I was like, I'm hot shit. I know everything.
I can do anything, yeah.
And so then I started another business, and I'm like, I know everything. I got this, baby. And I was an angel investor. I sucked at it. 10 businesses failed within a year. I lost all my wealth. I lost everything I possessed. Yeah. And it was a brutal wake-up call. I actually went through depression trying to resolve this. And what it was just saying, I can do anything and my gut will guide me. And both are not true. We have to live within our core competency, and we have to match instinct to data. And when those two line up, then we can start moving pretty fast. And data doesn't mean you're sitting behind this computer crunching numbers all day. Right. Some of them are just yes/no validators to move forward.
Yeah. So here's the next problem that I think a lot of people feel, experience, whatever you want to call it. And I myself was no different. So I know people are going to have that kind of cringe. So when you say something like divorce taskmaster, use a mechanism, focus on the core, let's call it the main thing, the one thing, right? Whatever, the vital thing that is going to actually move you closer or achieve the objective that you've set out for your company, and establishing what that even is, right? It feels like it requires a sacrifice, right? There's a sacrificial decision that has to be made. If I'm going to prioritize this, whatever this ends up being, it means I have to ignore that, or, well, how's this going to get done? And honestly, like, you'll see people's reaction to it. You can see they're like, it's coming out of their mouth as you tell them that, of, yeah, but what? Yeah, but what about this? Or who's going to do that? Or who's going to, I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. I don't have a team. I don't have the resources, right? All these various things are objections that come up. So when everything feels urgent, but you've used the data to narrow it down, what do you do about the chaos that's going to ensue with everything else that you now are neglecting, or it feels like you're neglecting?
Yeah, so you have to realize, basically you turn fear on itself, that the sense of neglect, that if you have to do everything, is actually the greatest form of neglect, because you're not doing the one thing, right? By catering to everything. I wrote a book called The Pumpkin Plan. I talk about this with pumpkin farmers. There's one guarantee in pumpkin farming, and I studied colossal farmers and ordinary farmers, and the guarantees with ordinary farmers, you're guaranteed never to grow something colossal. Like you and I, Chris, will never drive down any country road and out of this massive field, all of a sudden this huge pumpkin's growing. Because the spreading ourselves and the energy and resources everywhere prohibits, it restricts the growth of something colossal. Yeah. And so this is true not just in nature, it's true in our business, is that as we spread ourselves trying to do many things, we dilute our ability of doing any one thing great. So the goal is to sequence the great things, to sequence the one thing, to nail it, address it, perfect it, and go to the next. But if we're trying to do multiple things at once, you become a plate spinner, and a juggler, and it'll guarantee you won't make progress.
Right. You talk in the book, you talk about this, it's called OMEN, right? It's an acronym. Yeah. It stands for something. Yeah. So kind of talk us through what it is and why it's so effective, why it works.
Yeah. So once you know what B is, and there's a concept called the business hierarchy of needs that we alluded to, that is the structure. And in a business, there's 5 levels of needs. That it starts with sales, then profit, then order, which is efficiency, then impact and legacy. And we have to gauge where we are. Once we know what we need to do, we need to resolve it the right way. So most people just start on the fix without knowing what. So with the business hierarchy of needs, you know the what, but then the question is how. And OMEN is the framework of how you resolve something. So once you identify the need, say it's a sales need, and say specifically it's converting clients. We don't have enough conversion. Well, we use OMEN, and the acronym goes like this. O stands for objective. What's the objective? And it's an improved conversion rate. Maybe that's the objective. Yeah. Then M stands for measurements. Measurements are, how do we know it's an improved conversion rate? Well, we've been converting 1 customer a week. We really need to convert 5 a week. And there's some other parameters too that you can measure. The quality of that client, like, their spend is going to be at least $10,000. So I need 5 clients a week spending $10,000. There may be other metrics too. Mm-hmm. And I think most businesses know the O and the M, but they miss the E and the N. The E stands for evaluation frequency. Mm-hmm. And basically this is how often are we going to evaluate the progress toward our objective? Many small businesses in particular set an objective and then they abandon it. They say, what, we need 5 clients a week. And then the next day they're like, we need this. And the day after that, we need that. And they forgot what the original objective was in the first place. So an evaluation frequency has us checking in to see the progress of it. And we set it up to a reasonable, I call it the Goldilocks, the just right setting. So for some businesses, maybe checking once a week is adequate. Checking once a year is too infrequent, and checking every second would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
But every other circumstances it works. Like, if there's someone's having cardiac arrest and you're checking their heart condition, you should be checking every second. So it depends on what you're measuring. Then the next one is nurture, and nurture points to the need for flexibility in the objective, the measurement, and the evaluation frequency. When we set parameters of what we want to achieve, we do it based upon the data that's in front of us, but as time progresses, the data changes. Mm-hmm. So nurture is simply go back and do we need to change settings to achieve the business objectives? And nurture is a lot about asking the front line. So if you have employees or virtual help, the people closest to the problem usually have the best solution to the problem. It's enacting them to evaluate and make suggestions and even give direction on achieving the objectives that you set or modifying the objectives. So that's OMEN, objective, measurement, evaluation frequency, and nurture.
About the evaluation frequency, that's an interesting concept. I think people don't really know how to mechanize that, right? Like, I don't think they really, or they're just not, maybe they're just not intentional about it. Immediately, I thought of 2 things. I thought about every week, every Friday, I've built in a system to check my metabolics, right? Check my body fat percentage and all these various things. Like, I call it weigh-in day, right? And so that's my evaluation frequency, like what's going on. And that's good because it gives you things that you can celebrate. You can see the actual progress from week to week. And then the stock market, like you said, check every second. There are people that literally will drive themselves mad
that's true.
Checking the stock market all the time, right? So you have to kind of build. So for a business, is it the same for all in terms of, hey, every Friday, this is what we do. This is built into what we,
Great question.
We close our, right?
No,
how do you assess
that? It changes. The way to measure it is exactly how you did it. You make it a calendar, so it becomes a tradition of sorts. So, for conversions, we're going to check every Friday, and it becomes a calendared event. So that's how we do it. And we often have accountability to a second party. So with me, it's with my accountant. The reason my accountant's so great is not because they know much about my sales, but I pay my accountant for their work, so I don't miss that meeting. It's like a trainer at the gym. Right. I go to the gym on my own, but when I have a trainer, I'm going to show up and I'm going to work out harder. So that's why I use my accountant. But every business is not the same. We got to look at it and see when do we achieve data significance? That's the question. So with prospecting or converting clients, maybe if I only convert a client once every 6 months because I'm selling airplanes like Boeing or something, checking every week would be absurdly long. So how often do we realistically expect a trigger event, the goal to be achieved? And that is a date of significance, and that's when we set it. So for some businesses, it could be 6 months for prospecting. Other ones, it could be truly every second, because Amazon measures its conversion by the second. So it can be.
I think too, there's an opportunity, and maybe this is something you want to elaborate on because it might be in the book. I'm not sure. But you can also, when you do grow to a certain point, you talk a lot about people make it more than a paycheck, right? For people that work in jobs. And so every week they submit a report, they take ownership of their specific job responsibilities. And so I think to them, they can actually see the progress that they're having on the company, specifically if they work for a startup, and maybe they just feel like they're a cog in the wheel. Actually seeing measurable reports within their division gives them something to kind of celebrate, because they might not see the top of funnel stuff. Like
so in the business hierarchy of needs, we talk about sales, profit, and we talk about order. Order was organizational efficiency. It's the engagement of employees, which is so critical. And we found when I was researching Fix This Next, a pretty significant discovery, I feel, is that the motivation for employees is not as much the corporate goals or even their responsibilities, like what their goals is, as much as their personal achievements for most employees. And so what we did, and we test, I have 12 colleagues here, so we test stuff out regularly at our own little office, is we call it goal alignment. And so we set the corporate goal, which is honestly, I'm the business owner, it's my goal. So we set the corporate goal, but then we evaluated what's every person's individual personal goals in their lives. So someone here wants to buy their first house. Another person wants to learn Spanish. Actually, a few people want to learn Spanish. Another person wants to take care of something else. They want an investment property. So what we did is say, okay, how do we align the achievement of their individual goals along with the corporate goal?
Yeah.
Now, it's not like I'm not going to buy someone's house and help them in their investment property by giving them money, but I am bringing their attention to it. And so we're measuring individual achievements toward the corporate goal, and the engagement has skyrocketed. People are like, oh, I'm closer to getting my house. Let's hit that corporate goal because I'm going to get my bonus check, or I'm going to have more time to evaluate this, or this is such a great job because you guys just care about me. Those components become significant in achieving our goals.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we've talked about a lot of different mechanisms, new ways of approaching, new ways of thinking about business. One of the things that I think about anytime I talk about this or have a guest on the show that's talking about some kind of a new way of approaching things is humans were habitual creatures, right? And so it's difficult for us we hear something, it sounds exciting, we try it for a few days, and then we're back to business as usual, right? Yeah. So what are some of the things that you recommend that people can start making this, I said stick, right? How can they improve the stickiness of using your methodology? Obviously, I would surmise reading the book is the first thing you guys want to do. But then from that point forward, what do you recommend that they can take actionable, swift, to get results from?
Actionable, swift, bite-sized pieces, start change. So I'll tell you the easiest thing you can do, in addition to getting the book, is you can go, we set up a site that does an evaluation for you, and it takes less than 5 minutes. And the power is you can evaluate your business, and it's totally free. You can evaluate your business, pinpoint what to work on it, and then you can return and do the evaluation again to pinpoint the next thing. So that's, we set up a site called fixthisnext.com, surprise, surprise, fixthisnext.com, and there is an evaluation button. No subscription, no download, just take the test, evaluate what you need, and that's a way to start digesting this, because now it's 5-minute chunks of evaluation, pinpointing, and then taking action on your due course, and then coming back and evaluating again.
Okay, cool. You kind of broke out there for a second, I think internet connectivity issues, but you said fixthisnext.com is where you guys can go, and there's no like email, whatever, you just go and
just evaluate.
There it is.
Just evaluate your business.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. All right. And then, so I know the book isn't out yet, guys, at the time I'm recording this, which is April the 14th. This is going to go live probably about a week before. So at this point in time, you're listening, the book is about to come out, Fix This Next. Is there a specific link? Can they go to fixthisnext.com to buy the book, or is there a specific link they need to go to check out?
So you can go to Fix This Next. Also, there's book details. You can get the pre-order. Would be honored if anyone decides to get the pre-order, because you'll get on the day it comes out. I am committed that this is the most important work I've done in my life, and I know it'll be of service. But selfishly, when pre-orders start coming in, it starts building the exposure in the Amazon engine that it is, and starts spreading the word so other entrepreneurs will discover it. So if you feel you're considering getting the book, I invite you not to delay, get it now, and selfishly, I'll benefit because other entrepreneurs will discover it because of you.
Guys, and this is so, and also too with what's going on in the world, I don't know if that's going to delay things or not, but I saw you guys are number one right now, Amazon. I don't know if you knew that or not, Mike.
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah, check that out. Amazon new releases. You guys are number one overall. So there's obviously a lot of excitement, a lot of people interested in what this book entails, and I can absolutely see why. So, Mike, awesome. Thanks for dropping by. I'm going to make sure we covered everything. Anything else you want to say as far as something we didn't talk about that's in the book that people need to know about?
No, we covered the essence of it. I just want to invite people to in this economy, small business needs to stand up, step forward, and kick ass. It's crazy because we just got punched in the face by the world economy, and we're the ones who support the world economy, and we have to turn around and fix it. So get out there and do it. The world needs you.
I love it. Awesome, brother. Thanks for dropping back by, man. I'm excited
brother.
for the book release, and congratulations on everything.
Thanks so much, Chris.
See you, buddy.